The number stared back at me from the bank statement. $200,000, a loan. But I'd never seen this loan before in my life. My reading glasses slipped down my nose as I squinted at the document again, hoping the morning light through my small kitchen window was playing tricks on me. The envelope still lay torn open beside my coffee cup. The Great Lakes Federal Bank letterhead crisp and official. Everything looked legitimate. My name, my address, even what appeared to be my signature at the bottom. But I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't applied for any loan. My hands trembled slightly as I turned the paper over, searching for some explanation, some fine print that would make sense of this nightmare. The loan origination date showed March 1st, 2025, just 2 weeks ago. Monthly payments of $10,047 were already overdue. I needed answers. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The phone felt heavier than usual as I dialed the customer service number printed at the top of the statement. Each ring echoed in my quiet apartment, amplifying the growing knot in my stomach. Great Lakes Federal Bank, customer service. This is Michael. How may I assist you today? Yes, I'm calling about a loan that appears on my account. Gloria Thompson, account ending in 4729. Of course, Mrs. Thompson, let me pull up your file. I heard the soft click of keyboard keys. I see the personal loan for $200,000 was approved on March 1st. Is there something specific you need help with? The room seemed to tilt slightly. There must be some mistake. I never applied for this loan. A pause. Ma'am, I'm showing the application was submitted online with your social security number and digital signature verification. The funds were deposited into your checking account on March 2nd. That's impossible. My voice cracked slightly. I never received any deposit. My account balance has been the same for months. Let me check something else. Another pause. Oh, I see. Michael's professional tone shifted. The funds were transferred to a joint account holder the same day. Vanessa Thompson. My daughter's name hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles turning pale against the black plastic dot. Double quotes, Mrs. Thompson, are you still there? Yes, I whispered. Can you tell me more about this transfer? The entire loan amount was moved to Miss Vanessa Thompson's personal account within hours of the deposit, he continued, his voice now laced with careful procedure. She's listed as an authorized user on your account from, let me see, 5 years ago when you added her for emergency purposes. The walls of my small apartment felt like they were closing in. Vanessa, I trusted her completely. Added her after her father died so she could help with my banking if I ever became ill. Ma'am, is everything all right? Do you need to report fraudulent activity? My mouth went dry. Fraudulent activity. My own daughter. She had stolen from me, forged my signature, taken out a massive loan in my name, $200,000 that I would never be able to repay on my small pension. Mrs. Thompson, I need to call you back. I hung up before he could respond, my hand shaking as I set the phone down. The silence in my apartment felt deafening, broken only by the ticking of the old clock on my kitchen wall. The 27-minute drive to Vanessa's house felt like hours. My old Honda struggled up the hill toward Bloomfield Hills, where my daughter lived in a neighborhood I could never afford. Her house sat behind a perfectly manicured lawn, complete with professional landscaping and a circular driveway. 2 cars occupied the space, a new BMW and a Mercedes SUV, both worth more than my annual pension. I parked on the street and walked up the stone pathway, the loan document folded in my jacket pocket. The doorbell chimed with an expensive melody. Mom. Vanessa opened the door, her designer athleisure outfit looking fresh from the boutique. What are you doing here? You should have called first. We need to talk, I said, stepping past her without an invitation. Rich hardwood floors stretched beneath my feet, leading to a living room that looked like something from a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows, leather furniture, art that actually looked valuable. Vanessa closed the door slowly, her face showing signs of nervousness. Is everything okay? You seem upset. I got something interesting in the mail today. I pulled out the bank statement, watching her eyes focus on the official letterhead. Care to explain this? Her face went pale instantly. Mom, I don't know what that is. $200,000, Vanessa, a loan I never applied for, with a signature that looks remarkably like mine. The bank confirmed the funds went directly to your account within hours. There must be some mistake. Her voice cracked. Banks make errors all the time. Stop lying to me. My voice came out harder than I intended. I spoke to customer service. They confirmed you're listed as an emergency contact with account access. You forged my signature and stole $200,000. Finally, her shoulders sagged in defeat. Mom, you have to understand, Derek has expectations. He's used to a certain lifestyle, and I couldn't disappoint him. Help. The word came out as a whisper. This isn't help, Vanessa. This is theft. This is fraud. But you're not using that credit anyway, she argued. You live so simply, and Derek needs Vanessa. What's all the shouting about? Derek appeared at the top of the staircase, like he was making a grand entrance. Designer suit perfectly tailored, expensive watch glinting in the light, cologne that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. He descended slowly, his tones suggesting I was something unpleasant he'd found on his shoe. Oh, Gloria, you're here. Derek, I nodded stiffly. Your wife and I were just discussing a loan she took out in my name. He reached the bottom of the stairs and slipped his arm around Vanessa's waist. Gloria, honestly, you're making such a fuss over nothing. You're going to die soon anyway. Why do you need that money? The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood there staring at this man who had just casually dismissed my remaining years as worthless. Vanessa's face showed shock, but she didn't contradict him, didn't defend me. Something cold settled in my chest, replacing the hot anger. I folded the loan document carefully and put it back in my pocket. When I looked up, both of them were watching me with the wariness of people who suddenly realized they might have pushed too far. You're right, Derek. My voice came out calm, almost pleasant. I probably don't have many years left. Vanessa straightened, taking confidence from her husband's cruelty. Mom, you need to understand something here. You raised me to expect support from family. That's what parents do. She paced across their expensive floors. All those years you promised you'd always be there for me. Remember, you said family comes first, no matter what. The years of working 2 shifts at the bank to cover her college expenses flashed through my mind. Parents sacrifice for their children, not the other way around, Derek added, his arms sliding tighter around her waist. That's just natural order. I remembered the $15,000 I'd scraped together from my retirement for their wedding. And honestly, Mom, you should be grateful we're giving you this opportunity, Vanessa said. How many retired people get to feel useful? The manipulation was so complete, so perfectly crafted. I almost admired its artistry. They had taken my love for my daughter and weaponized it against me. So what's it going to be, Mom? Vanessa demanded. Are you going to support your family, or are you going to be selfish about money you don't even need? I looked at them both, standing in their beautiful house, living a life built on the foundation of my destroyed financial security. Something settled deep in my chest, cold and final as winter ice. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. This was a financial crime, and I was going to handle it like one. Monday morning brought 3 urgent envelopes from Great Lakes Federal Bank. Default notice, collection procedures, foreclosure warning. I'd spent the weekend replaying their words, but I'd also been thinking like a banker, analyzing the situation with 40 years of professional experience. At 9:30, I walked the 6 blocks to the bank, the same building where I'd worked for most of my adult life. Margaret Wells, the branch manager, was professional but firm. As cosigner, you're responsible for the entire balance, she said, her voice carrying genuine sympathy. I left the bank and walked home slowly, my decision made. The next day I started making calls. My first was to James Carter, an old colleague, now at Commerce Bank. We met for coffee. Gloria Thompson. Well, this is a pleasant surprise, he said warmly. I slid a copy of the loan application across the table. My daughter applied for this using me as a cosigner. I never signed it. James studied it with a practiced eye. Gloria, I have to tell you something. Your daughter has applied here several times in the past year. We declined them due to inconsistencies. Our handwriting analysis flagged some concerns about signature authenticity. Multiple banks. This wasn't a one-time crime. It was systematic fraud. My pen moved steadily across a fresh legal pad. By that afternoon, I was in Rachel Martinez's office at Inland Empire Credit Union. Rachel had worked fraud investigation for 15 years. Gloria, what I'm seeing here fits a pattern we've been tracking, she said, turning her computer screen toward me. These credit reports show applications at 4 different banks over the past 18 months. She printed several pages and handed them to me. These documents show systematic identity theft spanning over a year. Vanessa hadn't just stolen from me. She'd built an entire criminal enterprise around stealing my identity. That evening, I organized everything chronologically. Applications denied, small loans approved. the escalating pattern that led to the $200,000 score at my former employer. But something nagged at me. Several applications showed a applicant I didn't recognize. Someone named Tamara Williams, with a signature that looked remarkably similar to Derek's handwriting. My phone rang. It was James Carter. "Gloria, I made those calls," he said, his voice low. "You need to know something about your son. Derek Thompson has been very busy at several banks around town." I picked up my pen and opened to a fresh page in the legal pad. The puzzle was getting bigger and much, much darker. Friday morning at 11, I parked 3 blocks from Vanessa's house with a thermos of coffee and my old digital camera. James's call had given me what I needed, specifics about Derek's activities, always accompanied by someone named Tamara Williams. 40 years of methodical thinking doesn't disappear just because the subjects are family. Derek emerged at 11, driving the Mercedes purchased with stolen money. First stop, Saks, 5th Avenue. I watched from the food court as he examined expensive women's jewelry. He selected a diamond bracelet. The price tag, visible through my camera's zoom lens, showed $4,700. Nearly twice my monthly income, spent casually on someone who definitely wasn't his wife. I documented everything. Derek at the register, credit cards in hand, bags being loaded into the cart at 2:30. He drove to Antonio's, an expensive Italian restaurant downtown. She was already waiting at a corner table, mid-30s, beautiful, elegant. When he approached, she stood and kissed him. Not a polite kiss, but the intimate embrace of lovers. He made a show of presenting the bracelet, fastening it around her wrist. My camera captured everything through the restaurant window. Their intimate conversation, her hands on his face. This was a full relationship, funded entirely by stolen money. "This bracelet costs more than most people make in months," I heard her say as they stepped outside. Her response was equally telling. "You spoil me too much, but I'm not complaining about the lifestyle upgrade. My life savings transformed into another woman's luxury." They moved to the hotel bar at the Whitney, where he ordered expensive champagne. "My wife's family will never know where this money really goes," Derek said, raising his glass, "to financial freedom. Tamara," "It had to be Tamara Williams," replied, "and stupid women who make it possible." I took one final photograph. His wedding ring, clearly visible, as he caressed his lover's face. The surveillance photos were the perfect capstone to my investigation. But Vanessa hadn't just victimized me. I was certain of it. The next morning, I called Harold Jackson, Vanessa's neighbor for 5 years, a widower on Social Security. "Gloria, Vanessa's told me so much about you. How are you feeling? She said you'd been having some health issues." Another lie, another manipulation. We met for coffee. I showed him the loan documents. His face went through the same progression I'd experienced: confusion, recognition, then burning anger. "She told me you were sick and needed help, but were too proud to ask," he said, his voice cracking. "Said if I co-signed a car loan for her, she'd use the money to pay your medical bills. $18,000. The car was repossessed last month, and now they're saying he owed the full balance. He trusted her because she was my daughter." Harold provided 3 more names. Other people Vanessa had approached with similar stories. By Tuesday afternoon, I was sitting in the law office of Marcus Stone, a fraud prosecutor who'd left the DA's office to handle cases exactly like this one. The conference table was covered with documentation from 5 different victims. "Mrs. Thompson, in 20 years of fraud prosecution, I've rarely seen a case this well documented," he said, reviewing my photos and records. "Individual cases are weak," he explained, "but collective evidence creates an overwhelming narrative of a deliberate criminal enterprise." The next evening, we gathered in a community center meeting room. 7 victims, all targeted by Vanessa. There was Tom, my old colleague who'd lent Vanessa $5,000 for a fake emergency, and David Bennett, who'd guaranteed her apartment lease and was now facing eviction. I stood at a whiteboard, organizing the timeline. "This is a calculated criminal enterprise," I explained, targeting elderly neighbors, family friends, professional contacts who trusted the Thompson family name. "She told me her mother was dying and needed experimental treatment," said Mr. Henderson, an 80-year-old church member who'd mortgaged his home to help. The energy in the room shifted. These weren't defeated victims anymore. They were witnesses in a major criminal case. Marcus Stone took the floor. His presence was commanding, his words sharp and precise. "What Gloria has assembled here is more than just a series of unfortunate events. It's a pattern of racketeering." He looked around the room, making eye contact with each victim. With this level of documentation, we're not just looking at civil recovery. We're looking at federal wire fraud charges, identity theft, and elder abuse. A murmur went through the room. The words federal charges hung in the air, heavy with consequence. Marcus nodded approvingly. They think they're dealing with isolated, defeated victims. Instead, they're facing a coordinated coalition with comprehensive evidence and legal representation. So, what's our next step? Tom asked, his voice steady. I looked at the faces around me, people whose lives Vanessa had damaged, whose trust she'd betrayed, whose financial security she'd destroyed. Our next step, I said, my voice cold and clear, is to let them know the game is over. The plan was simple. Marcus would prepare the official filings. In the meantime, I would make one final attempt to see if my daughter had any shred of decency left. Wednesday afternoon, my phone rang with an urgency that cut through the quiet of my apartment. Mom, we need to talk right now. Vanessa's voice was tight with panic. You're making a big mistake with these people you've been calling. So she knew. Word had gotten back to her. Don't play games with me, she snarled. I know what you're doing, gathering these folks, filling their heads with lies about me. It stops today. I'll meet you at Vincenzo's in an hour, I said calmly. We can discuss this like adults. The restaurant was public, well lit, forcing her to moderate her behavior. She was already there, her designer dress and expensive jewelry projecting a confidence her clenched jaw betrayed. You think you're so smart, she began before I'd even sat down. Bank records aren't stories, daughter, I replied quietly. Signature analysis isn't subject to interpretation. There it appeared, a theatrical entrance. Gloria, he said, sliding into the chair beside Vanessa. I'm so glad we can finally talk this through like family. What if we could reduce your debt by half? Vanessa offered, attempting sincerity. Would that help everyone move forward? Reduce my debt, as if the money she'd stolen belonged to her. I think there's something you both need to see, I said, reaching for my phone, about how that loan money is really being spent. The first photograph filled the screen. Derek and Tamara at the restaurant, her hand on his face. Vanessa's face went white. Derek, what is this? Who is that woman? I swiped. Derek fastening the bracelet on Tamara's wrist. Another, his hands on the jewelry he'd bought her, his wedding ring glinting. This is where your loan went, Vanessa. Derek's been spending our money on his mistress. Derek's shock lasted 3 seconds before his survival instincts kicked in. Gloria, this is pathetic, he said, his voice a perfect mix of incredulity and concern. These are obviously fake photos. Honey, don't you see what's happening? His hand found Vanessa's arm. Your mother is desperate. She's fabricated these images because she can't accept responsibility for her own financial situation. Vanessa looked from the phone to her husband, desperation on her face. But Derek, that looks like, that's your watch. She's been stalking me, Derek cried, turning to Vanessa, his voice breaking with theatrical emotion. This is harassment, honey. She's clearly lost her mind. I watched my daughter's expression and understood. Clarity meant nothing when confronted with a truth too devastating to accept. She was choosing to believe his lies. I think this conversation is over, Derek said softly, a smile of cold satisfaction on his face. Gloria, we'll pray for your recovery. Later that night, the expensive hardwood floors of Vanessa's living room echoed with frantic pacing. She knows Vanessa, she knows everything. Derek's voice was sharp, stripped of its usual polished calm. The photos, the loan applications, that old woman has been building a case against us. Vanessa, pale and shaking, sank onto a leather sofa. Fake photos. You said they were fake. Of course they're not fake, you idiot, he snapped, the mask of the supportive husband dissolving completely. Do you think I'd let you waste all that money on yourself? Tamara is an investment, but your mother, she's not just some sad old pensioner. She's a professional. She thinks like they do. He stopped pacing and stared at her, his eyes glittering with a desperate, predatory light. She has evidence, Vanessa, physical evidence. We have to get it. Get it? What are you talking about? Her apartment. She has that camera, notebooks, bank files, all of it. We have to destroy it. It's our only chance. Vanessa stared at him, horrified. Break into my mother's home. She's not your mother anymore, he hissed, kneeling in front of her, grabbing her hands. She's the woman who is going to send you to prison. Do you want that? Do you want to lose all this? His gesture encompassed the opulent room, the life she'd stolen to possess. You have a key, he whispered. You still have the emergency key she gave you, don't you? She nodded numbly. She'll be at that ridiculous victim meeting tomorrow night. We go in, we take everything that matters, and we burn it. It will be her word against ours. And who are they going to believe? The next evening, my small apartment felt unnervingly still as Vanessa's key slid into the lock. The familiar click echoed in the hallway like a gunshot. She hesitated, her hand trembling on the doorknob. Derek pushed past her impatiently. Don't lose your nerve now, he whispered harshly. Where does she keep her paperwork? They moved through the quiet space like ghosts, their shadows dancing on the walls in the dim light from the street. The apartment was a monument to a life of modesty and order, a stark contrast to their own chaotic decadence. Every item had its place, a lifetime of careful habits. It felt like sacrilege. Derek went straight for the small desk in the living room corner. Rifling through drawers with cold efficiency, Vanessa stood frozen in the center of the room, looking at the photographs on the mantelpiece, herself as a girl, her father smiling, me in my prime. A wave of something, guilt maybe, washed over her, but Derek's sharp voice cut through it. Found it. He held up my yellow legal pad, its pages filled with my neat, methodical handwriting. Names, dates, account numbers. This is everything. Now the camera. They found it on the kitchen table where I'd left it after downloading the photos. Derek popped a memory card out and crushed it under his heel with a satisfying crunch. Let's go. We'll burn this trash in the barbecue pit. As they turned to leave, Vanessa's eyes fell on the old cuckoo clock on the wall, the one her father had loved. For a moment, she reached for it, a flicker of sentiment in her eyes. Derek grabbed her arm. Leave it. It's worthless. They slipped out into the night, leaving the door unlocked, the silence of the apartment now holding a new violated quality. When I returned home from the coalition meeting, a sense of unease hit me the moment I saw the door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open slowly. The apartment was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet, a disturbed quiet. My eyes swept the room. Nothing seemed out of place at first, but then I saw it. The drawer of my desk was open. My heart pounded in my chest. I rushed to the desk. The legal pad was gone. My files, neatly arranged, were in disarray. I ran to the kitchen table. The camera was there, but it felt light. I opened the memory card slot. Empty. A cold dread washed over me, quickly replaced by a white-hot fury that burned away any remaining sentiment. They had been here, in my home. They had crossed a line from which there was no return. For a moment, the violation felt absolute. They had taken my evidence, my leverage, but defeat was a luxury I couldn't afford. This act of desecration didn't break me. It forged my resolve into something harder, sharper. This was no longer about justice. It was about eradication. I picked up my phone, my hand steady, my mind clear. I dialed Marcus Stone. Marcus, it's Gloria. Is everything all right? How was the meeting? They broke into my apartment. They stole my notes and destroyed the memory card with the photos. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Gloria, are you okay? I'm fine, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. But they've just declared war. It's time to accelerate everything. File the charges tomorrow morning. No more warnings. No more chances. We're done talking. Thursday morning at 9 a.m. sharp, I sat across from Marcus Stone's desk. The loss of the physical evidence from my apartment was a setback, but not a fatal one. I had backups of the photos on my computer, and my memory of the notes was perfect. Gloria, this documentation is extraordinary, Marcus said, reviewing the digital files and my reconstructed timeline. I've never seen a civilian investigation this thorough. We can file criminal charges for fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation of the elderly. By noon, the criminal fraud charges had been filed with the Wayne County District Attorney's Office. But that was only the beginning. From the courthouse, I drove to Derek's workplace, a marketing firm downtown. I walked into the reception area, carrying a sealed envelope addressed to the Human Resources Director. Could you ensure Mr. Thompson's supervisor receives this immediately? I asked politely. It contains information relevant to his employment. The envelope contained pristine prints of the surveillance photographs and a professional summary explaining how company time and resources were potentially being used to facilitate criminal activity. Next, I visited the local print shop where I had prepared a small mailing project, 27 envelopes, each containing copies of the restaurant photos and a brief, factual explanation of the circumstances. The addresses included Derek's parents, his brother, his college friends, and several prominent members of his social circle. Social reputation takes years to build and minutes to destroy. My final stop was Vanessa's apartment complex, where I left an envelope for the building manager containing proof that her lease, guaranteed by the elderly Mr. Henderson, was secured through fraudulent means. By Friday morning, Derek's world began collapsing with mathematical precision. His supervisor called an emergency meeting to discuss serious allegations affecting professional conduct. His parents left increasingly frantic voicemails demanding explanations for the disturbing photographs they'd received. 3 longtime friends blocked him on social media. Vanessa's panicked phone call came at 10:30. "Mom, what have you done? The police want to question me about fraud charges. Derek's been suspended from work pending investigation. People are saying terrible things about us." "I've done exactly what any fraud victim should do, Vanessa," I replied calmly. "Seek justice through proper legal channels. This is insane. You're destroying our lives over money." "No, Vanessa, you destroyed your lives when you chose to steal from your mother and 7 other people. I'm simply ensuring appropriate consequences." Derek called an hour later, his voice cracking with a desperation I'd never heard before. "Gloria, please, you have to stop this. I'm going to lose my job. My family thinks I'm some kind of criminal. This is destroying everything I've worked for. You should have considered those consequences before you decided to fund your affair with stolen money," I said. "What do you want?" He sobbed. "What will it take to make you stop?" "I want you to experience exactly what you put 7 elderly people through," I said quietly. "Financial insecurity, social embarrassment, and the complete destruction of the life you thought was secure." That's cruel," he whispered. "Yes," I said, "it is." The pressure was working. But Derek was a cornered animal, and cornered animals are dangerous. He called Tamara. "It's all falling apart," he said, his voice a frantic whisper over the phone. "The old woman is burying us. Vanessa is useless. She's going to confess to everything." "That sounds like your problem, Derek," Tamara replied coolly. "No, it's our problem," he insisted. "There's still money, Tamara, a lot of it, in an account you know about. Help me get to it. We can disappear together, just like we talked about." There was a long pause. Tamara, a woman whose entire life was a calculation of risk versus reward, was doing the math. Derek was now a massive liability. His name was toxic, connected to a sprawling fraud investigation. Helping him would be career suicide. Betraying him, however, that had potential. She saw an angle. "I'll see what I can do," she said, her voice smooth and reassuring. "Lay low. I'll call you." She hung up and immediately searched for a number. She found it in an old contact list from a business associate. "Gloria Thompson." She dialed from a burner phone. "Mrs. Thompson," she said when I picked up, "you don't know me, but we have a mutual acquaintance in your son. I have information that could be very valuable to you. Information about an offshore account. In exchange, I want assurance that my name stays out of any and all legal proceedings." We met at a quiet bench in Belle Isle Park, the Detroit River moving steadily eastward, indifferent to our troubles. Tamara Williams was exactly as she appeared in the photos, polished, confident, and utterly She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Derek is planning to run," she said, not looking at me. "He's been siphoning a portion of the loan money and funds from other sources into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. He thinks he's going to liquidate everything he can, transfer it, and be on a plane by the end of the week." She handed me a slip of paper. On it was an account number and the name of a bank. He wanted me to go with him, an expensive liability. I prefer to cut my losses. "Why help me?" I asked, my eyes fixed on the numbers. "Let's call it a severance package," Tamara said with a thin smile. "He tried to make me his accomplice and his escape plan. I don't like being used. Besides, with him out of the picture and my name clear, the assets he was spending on me are, well, let's just say my lifestyle is secure. Your fight is with him and your daughter. I was just a symptom of their dysfunction." She stood up. "I trust you'll know what to do with this. I'd advise you to act quickly. He's getting more desperate by the hour." She walked away without a backward glance, a woman securing her own future by selling out her lover. It was a devil's bargain, but I had no hesitation in taking it. I didn't even go home. I drove straight to Marcus Stone's office. I walked in without an appointment and placed the slip of paper on his desk. This is an offshore account where Derek has been hiding the stolen money. He's planning to flee the country. Marcus's eyes widened as he read the account number. He was on the phone within seconds, his voice a rapid-fire sequence of legal commands. Get me Judge Albright on an emergency motion. Yes, flight risk, international asset freeze. We need it executed within the hour. The information from Tamara was the final, devastating blow. It proved premeditation. A clear intent not just to defraud but to escape with the proceeds. It transformed the case from a domestic financial crime into a serious international felony. By the end of the day, an emergency court order had frozen the Cayman Islands account. Derek's escape route had been cut off. The last nail was hammered into his coffin. He had nowhere left to run. Saturday morning, my coffee was interrupted by another call from Vanessa, but this time, her panic was replaced by a hollow, broken anguish. Mom, Derek left me. Her voice cracked. He packed his things this morning and moved out. He said, you were right. He admitted everything about Tamara, the money, all of it. Through the phone, I could hear the chaos of a life disintegrating. He said staying with me would destroy his career completely. He said Tamara has money, that she can give him the life he wants without all this legal trouble. The irony was bitter. Derek, having been cut off from his stolen funds by Tamara's betrayal, was now clinging to her, unaware she was the architect of his final downfall. Mom, I know I made terrible mistakes, but I'm your daughter. Please help me. The same old refrain, but the words were meaningless now. I'm coming over, she said, her voice pleading. 40-5 minutes later, Vanessa stood at my door, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 5 days. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her posture slumped in defeat. He was planning this whole thing, the loans, the money, even marrying me. It was all some scheme with Tamara, she said, sinking heavily onto my couch. I was just as much a victim as you were. Still making excuses, still deflecting blame. Vanessa, you forged my signature. You stole money from 7 elderly people. You chose to believe his lies even when presented with photographic evidence. Those weren't things that happened to you. Those were choices you made. I was stupid. I was weak, she whispered, her eyes red. I'll testify against him. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. The prosecution already has everything they need, I said flatly. Your cooperation wouldn't change the charges against you. Then what can I do? What will it take for you to forgive me? Forgiveness, a word used to erase consequences. You can face the consequences of your choices like an adult, I said, walking to the door and opening it. You can accept that your actions have results. The conversation is over. The family relationship is over. The only thing left now is letting the legal system finish what you started. She stood slowly, her face a mask of broken acceptance. I love you, Mom. Love without respect, loyalty, or honesty isn't love, Vanessa. It's just words people use when they want something. Friday morning, April the 12th, I stood on the steps of the Wayne County Courthouse, wearing my best suit. Marcus Stone waited beside me, his confidence as polished as mine. Are you ready for this, Gloria? He asked. I've been ready since March 15th, I replied. Inside, the coalition of victims sat in the gallery. Harold Jackson, Tom, David Bennett, Mr. Henderson, and the others. They nodded as I passed. A silent acknowledgement of our shared fight. Vanessa sat alone at the defendant's table, her public defender shuffling through papers. She looked older, thinner, diminished. Judge Harrison entered, his presence commanding the room. Miss Thompson, the judge, addressed Vanessa directly. You have been charged with multiple counts of identity theft, bank fraud, and financial exploitation of elderly victims. How do you plead? Guilty, Your Honor. Vanessa's voice was barely a whisper, devoid of defiance or manipulation. Marcus Stone stood. Your Honor, the prosecution wishes to acknowledge the extraordinary cooperation of Mrs. Gloria Thompson, whose professional expertise made this prosecution possible. The defendant defrauded 7 victims of over $300,000. Judge Harrison's voice carried the weight of the law. Miss Vanessa Thompson, the court sentences you to 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and full financial restitution to all victims. You will surrender all assets for liquidation, and your wages will be garnished until complete repayment is achieved. Full financial ruin. The systematic pressure had achieved its calculated result. Outside the courthouse, news reporters gathered. I spoke briefly, my words chosen with precision. Justice has been served through proper legal channels. The system works when citizens use it professionally and systematically. I hope this case demonstrates that financial fraud, even within families, carries serious consequences. Harold Jackson approached me as the reporters dispersed. Gloria, I can never thank you enough. Without your organization, I would have lost my home. The system exists to protect people like us. Harold, we simply had to use it correctly. Driving home, I reflected on the past 8 weeks. I had entered this crisis a victim, elderly, vulnerable, betrayed. I was leaving it as something else entirely, a successful prosecutor who demonstrated that systematic thinking could triumph over emotional manipulation. Vanessa would spend years rebuilding her life from nothing. Derek, thanks to Tamra, had escaped criminal charges, but not ruin. His career and reputation were destroyed. His stolen nest egg inaccessible. As for me, I sat in my modest apartment that evening, reading emails from other fraud victims who had heard about our case and wanted advice. My phone rang. It was Marcus Stone with an update on asset liquidation schedules, professional conversations about professional results. Trust, once broken, cannot be repaired, but justice, when pursued systematically, can always be achieved. The system had worked exactly as designed. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes, one word is enough to say you were here.